again, Brigadiers. Welcome to another Q&A. This time, a Q&A regarding my life with Spina Bifida, which I advertised 2 weeks ago. Well, for 2 weeks. But I got one question. And we're going to answer that question in detail today. And it comes from May. Oops. And it is, what's the hardest part about having Spina Bifida? For those of you that don't know what it is split spine in Latin. Basically, when I was in the womb, my spine didn't fuse properly, and when I was born, I had a hole in my back, and it showed, or in that hole was broken bits of my spine, so they had to take those out, and as a result, I am paralyzed from the waist down. Now, hardest parts about it, well, there really is no hardest part. I mean, I guess you could say walking would be hard, considering I can't. Yeah, not being able to walk kind of sucks, but I've learned to live with it over the years. I used to be able to with crutches and leg braces, but thanks to my legs not being able to straighten out far enough so I can lock my braces, that hasn't happened since 5th grade. Which was 17 years ago now. 17 years ago, so it's been a while since I've been able to walk. Now, I just use a wheelchair to get around. I used to be able to do the army crawl, but thanks to a hospital stay, I lost most of my upper body strength, and now I can't hold myself up. So, there's that. And then, on top of that, I have hydrocephalus as well. What that is water on the brain. Now, I have excess fluid in my head, and to regulate it, I have what's called a shunt. It was placed on the right rear side of my head. What it does, it takes the excess fluid, pumps it through a little miniature tube. It goes from my head down through my neck. You can actually see it sticking out the right side of my throat, through my chest, and then it exits in my stomach. So, without that, I would more than likely be brain dead at this point, because my head would swell dramatically. Let's see, what else? I know it said one thing, but you know, I decided to basically give a synopsis of what I have to deal with on a daily basis, because who wants to listen, or who wants to listen to a 2-minute Q&A? I certainly wouldn't. Anyway, another thing I gotta deal with is transferring with a wooden sliding board, which, if not careful, I could hurt myself pretty badly. The reason for that is, well, I mean, it's a wooden sliding board on a sliding surface, like my bed, for example. And also, my brakes aren't as good as they used to be, and my tire treads are fairly weak. So, you know, one thing could lead to another. The board can slip out from underneath me, and I could fall on my ass and bust it open again. Would not be fun. Let's just put it that way. And because it's like a foot off the ground, in both cases, like going from my bed to my chair, vice versa, going from my shower chair, which I have to use to bathe, yeah, that wouldn't be a very good situation if I fell while transferring. Next thing I'm going to talk about is my... Well, okay, I mentioned a wound and a hospital stay. Well, this particular one took place in 2009. 2 weeks after my birthday, exactly 2 weeks after my birthday, I went to the hospital for a wound on a particular area that got so infected it was gangrenous. Is that what the word is? To the point where it was down to the bone. I had to get 2 surgeries to patch it up. One to clean it out, and the other to, you know, get skin grafts and close it, because it's a pretty big hole, I'm not gonna lie. And then a third surgery to get a colostomy bag, which leads me to my next point. I have a colostomy bag, and I wear adult-sized pads because of another side effect of Spina Bifida, which is incontinence. Because I can't control my bladder or my bowels. Excuse me. And because of that, I was in diapers for the first 19 years of my life. It was not fun. It was definitely not comfortable. Let's get that out of the way right now. I hated wearing diapers. Had to have a special place to change myself every time I went to school. Went to a new school. I had to find a different place for me. One of those places ended up being the back room of a nursing class in my tech school. So, while there were a bunch of nursing students learning in a room close by, I was in the back room doing my business. And I got to know them very well. I would go to visit them every day, you know, say hello, and I actually took one of them to the senior prom. And I also was almost the victim of well, okay, I was a victim of a pen being thrown at me during a relationship argument, because one of the kids in the class at the time was a boy, another was a girl, and they were together. well, keyword were together up until that very point, but, you know, I got a pen thrown in my direction and it landed in my lap. Because of that. Anyway, back on track. I do use a colostomy bag, and you know what that, if you don't know what that is, basically it's a I guess it's plastic bag surrounded by adhesive, and what you do, you cut a hole to match the stoma being the, for lack of better terms, artificial anus in your stomach that you defecate from. You make a hole big enough to fit the whole stoma, and then you sterilize the area, put down some adhesive or protective powder, wipe that around the area, and then you put down some adhesive. Then you put the stoma down, and it's taped on there. There's tape on the outside of the adhesive attached to the appliance. And then it's supposed to stay on for like a week, but knowing me, I leave it on way too long sometimes, and my stoma ends up getting irritated. Not the stoma itself, but the area around it. And for urination, I use catheters. And speaking of that, I had a rather painful episode thanks to a catheter and a very careless nurse during that hospital stay I mentioned earlier. What happened was, it came time to change my catheter because I had one in the entire time, and you had to change it once a week. So when she put the new one in, because I wasn't allowed to do it, I had to have someone do it for me for whatever reason, I don't know. But when she put the new one in, she lacerated my bladder, and it bled for the next 9 hours. And I could tell my bladder was filling up, but I thought I had to, you know, I just thought I had to piss. Turns out, I had massive blood clots in my bladder, and the pain was immense. Let's just put it that way. I usually have a high pain tolerance, but this was just ridiculous. I likened it to having a period for a male, because that's how bad it hurt. I know. Probably not how I should refer to it, but anyway, it took 2 shots of morphine and 1 failed Vicodin pill to knock me out. And when I woke up later that night, my parents were actually having a conversation, and that was the first time that had happened in years. Because my parents had been divorced for about 15 years up to that point. In the end, they didn't like each other, and it was just a surreal scene to see them in the same room conversing nicely together after all these years. Anyway, Next, we have driving. I cannot drive a car for a regular car for obvious reasons, because I can't use the pedals. So I have to be driven everywhere, even on dates. Well, okay, the only dates I've been on, I've had to be driven to, because my girlfriend at the time couldn't drive either, because she too was disabled, sort of, mentally. If you call short-term memory loss a disability, but I digress. It really sucks, because there's been a lot of times where I'd like to, you know, just go out and be by myself, you know? And since I can't drive, I can't do that. And it would cost a shit ton of money to get a vehicle that requires hand controls and to fit my wheelchair in the driver's seat. And it also requires a driver's license, which I do not have, of course. And money, which I also do not have a lot of, unless you count the money in my wallet, which in that case I kind of do have a lot of. And also, speaking of dating, before I started seeing my first girlfriend, I had trouble getting girls to agree to go out with me, simply for the fact that they didn't think it would be, or they thought it would be awkward being with me because of, you know, the wheelchair and the disability, blah blah blah. A lot of people felt sorry for me when I was a kid, and I'm guessing some of them still do. I mean, I wonder how many of the friends I have actually genuinely are friends with me, or if they're just friends with me because they feel sorry for me, which I hope isn't the case. But, you know, I guess it could happen. I don't generally like it when people feel sorry for me, because it makes me feel helpless, you know? Like, oh, I'm sorry that happened. Well, you know what? It's the card I was dealt, so gotta play it, whether I want to or not. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, speaking of being felt sorry for, well, okay, not really, but I got a lot of special treatment when I was a kid, and going into high school as well. I had my own van. Well, I shouldn't say my own van. I rode what people referred to as the short bus back in the day. And it indeed was a short bus. I mean, it only had, well, I say it, but I've been to four different school districts in my life, and all the buses I rode had 4 seats and 2 different places where you could hook up wheelchairs. But in order to get the second one, you had to fold one of the seats in. So yeah, I had to ride one of those every school day. I attempted to ride on field trips on a regular bus with my friends. However, the teachers were tired of carrying me on and off the bus, so they just decided to let my friends ride with me to and from as a compromise. Oh yeah, I mentioned that I can't feel my leg below the knees, rather. I think I did anyway. Well, because of that, I am susceptible to blood clots and infections where I can't feel them. And with that wound I mentioned a while ago, I couldn't feel that, so I got really lucky in that regard, because otherwise I'd have been yelling my head off. And there was another thing I was going to mention, but what was it? Oh yeah, I can't use my oven. I have to get someone to cook for me if I want to use my oven. Otherwise, I just use my microwave or my toaster. And believe it or not, I did have an oven that I could use, but it broke, so I had to get a new one, and now I can't reach the buttons on this one, so I can't use my oven, which kind of sucks, but at least I can still feed myself most of the time. I can dress myself. I can, you know, get most things by myself. One more thing regarding my incontinence. I have a great susceptibility to urinary tract infections, and because of that, I have to drink a lot of water. I can't drink a whole lot of soda, which I've been actually disobeying a lot lately. I've had a lot of Pepsi and orange vanilla Coke lately. Otherwise, I have to drink a lot of water because my kidneys, specifically my left one, I think it is. My left kidney is smaller than the right one, and they both are basically along for the ride at this point. I wonder, is there anything else? I think that's it. So, I know that wasn't a straight answer, but I figured I'd give you a better explanation of what I go through, rather than just, like I said, have a 2-minute video and then end it. So, thanks for watching an inside look at my life. If you enjoyed this lesson, per se, consider leaving a like, and if you want to see more of this or anything else I have to offer, subscribe and join the Wheeler Brigade. But until next time, stay healthy, stay in school, and never be afraid to learn.